Another cool way that you can add images to your picture is with vector graphics. A vector graphic can be anything as simple as this shape right here that I made on top of an otherwise black background that kind of signifies a road. Or it can be something more complicated like this pipe. Now, vector graphics give you a completely different vibe than, say, a photographic element. And I think that if you're doing a single picture to cover up the entire background, that's a cool thing. Or, like with this picture frame, this photographic element worked. But I think that for my Sherlock Holmes pictures, I really liked these vector graphics as a way to make them seem more modern and cool, and also to make them feel kind of moody. Now, making a vector graphic like this rectangle is very straightforward. Also, I'm just convinced that this is purple and not black. Yes, it is. It's purple. But now I'm making it gray. Okay, so to make a vector graphic, ideally you'd make most vector graphics in Illustrator, but you can also do them in InDesign, especially if you're doing something pretty simple. Making a rectangle like that, you could use the pen tool. That's what I would probably do. And let's also be on the right layer. So I'm going to be on layer 1. And I'm just going to make a shape. I'm just dropping these points and then closing it up. Now I can fill this shape. I'm just going to fill it in with black and then tint it so that way it's gray. Okay, and now I've just made a vector graphic. If I want to move this graphic, all I have to do is get the direct selection tool. The shortcut for that is just the letter A. And I can move it. I can move the points. I can move the whole shape by using the regular selection tool over here, or I can move points using the direct selection tool A. You can change the color back. Let's say I think this is too light. I'm going to try it at 65. There we go. And I think that this works pretty well. If you want to do something a little more intricate, something like this, I made this pipe in Illustrator. And this actually goes to my original thumbnail. Let's see if I can pull it up. It would be in downloads. So here's my original thumbnail. I had contemplated using this pipe as a way to divide the page in two, and I liked how when I thought of Sherlock Holmes, a pipe seemed like a really good iconic image that also would function well on the page. This creates some good sections on the page, and I thought it would be a cool thing to try. So what I did was I went into Illustrator, and I made a pipe. So let's just open this file. And the way that I made the pipe was by finding one online and tracing it. So I'm going to show you the quick version of how I did this, because really I spent a long time on this and I don't want to make this a 2-hour video, which is probably how much time I put into making that pipe look the way that it does. But just for the sake of showing you kind of how I did it, I'm going to do it again. And what I did was I used the pen tool and I just started tracing my shape on a different layer. And if you've taken the introduction class, this is basically exactly what we did for the letter image project. So you're just tracing the shape as best as you can. It doesn't need to be perfect. And you're just dropping points and dragging them to get them to look the way that you want. Over here, I'm going to hit the letter, not the letter, I'm going to hold down Option. And Option is going to kind of just change the trajectory of this path by turning it into the Convert Anchor tool. Okay, that doesn't look exactly right. I'm going to have to fix that. Also, I just want to point out, I'm doing this a little stupidly right now. It's a lot better to trace with an outline showing rather than a filled in shape. just because that makes it easier to see what you're tracing. But you know, you live and learn. Okay, so now I have this shape, and if I want to, I can now mess around with the handles until it's perfect. Trying to get it to be perfect is exactly what made it take so long for me to do. Here, this is probably the wonkiest part. Fix that like that. Okay, just keep fixing. Not a problem. If it's getting too out of control, you can always add more points. That's how you know if you need to add more points, is if the points are too hard to control. Okay, now for the top, I just used ellipses, and I want to show you on the one that I actually did. I have a few levels of darkness. So the top is light, then the side is dark, the top is light, and then this is the shadow inside. And all of those added details is what gives it the depth that makes it look good. Now, I don't want to sit here and redo everything, but I'm just gonna show you basically. So you drag out. If you have shapes that are rounded, you can use the shape tools. And you can just mess around until it's kind of perfect. It's good to lock the image that you are tracing as a general rule of thumb. Okay, and now I'm going to, is it better to change my shape? Whatever. Okay, and now I can take the stroke down. Okay, now I have this pipe. And the top part, if I wanted to show the depth inside, I would make this a smaller circle. There we go, and now we have some nice depth. The more depth you add, the more interesting your shape will look. I also want to point out the way that I did this part was I made it seems like what you could just do is just draw a shape over here, but this is a different color than this. So I needed this whole thing to be two different shapes. So what I ended up doing was using the knife tool. Although I want to point out the knife tool is not a default tool over here, and to get it you would need to go in to these extra tools. You'd find it like pretty far down over here under the eraser, and so I just dragged this into my eraser, and that's how I got it. Let me show you. I'm just going to reset it, and now you can see that the knife is not here. So what I had to do was just drag it and bring it there. And I wanted to use the knife because I think it's exactly what I needed. The eraser does cut them in two different shapes, but then I lose the part in the middle, which actually isn't a big deal since I'm going to cover it anyway. And the scissor would open the shape, but what I really wanted was the knife. Anyway, the knife makes this into two different shapes. You can see if I go down here that right now we have this one path, that one shape, and once I use the knife, now I have two different shapes, which means that I can color this one black. And then I also added a white shape to go down. I mean to add some reflective areas. And I made that go all the way down to here, I think. And this was white. And basically, just by continuing to do this until I was happy with it, I ended up with a pipe that I really liked. And once I had the pipe, I'm just going to hide this since I don't need it. Once I had the pipe, and let's hide layer 1. So this was the pipe that I ended up with. Once I had this, I can hit save on my document, and then to get it in InDesign, it's basically the exact same thing as getting a Photoshop file into InDesign. I'm just going to find a blank page here. What you do is you go to Place and find your document, and then you can just place it. Then I messed around with it until I liked how it was looking on my page. I wanted it to be flipped. And what's good about doing this is instead of just copying and pasting it in, which is something else that I did in the beginning just because I was lazy and didn't want to do things the right way. But if you copy and paste it, then every time you want to make a change to your object, you have to go back and paste it again. But if you make a change, like let's say I want to change how this is like this color to being yellow, and I hit save, it will automatically update in, let's find this thing. It'll automatically update right away into InDesign. And that's very convenient because it means you don't need to consistently, like every time you make a change, now I need to replace it over and find the exact same orientation. That's a huge hassle. So you would just place it and then put in all the other objects. So that's kind of how you would use vector images in InDesign using Illustrator. I think vector images can be really great depending on what mood you're trying to go for. I wanted to go for something moody, so I went for this vector image, and then I put this piece of crumpled paper on top. I thought that looked really cool. There's a very big range of complicated to very not complicated graphics that you can do to make your documents more exciting and have a little more pizzazz.